Welcome to Cigars, Whiskey, and Jesus. This is episode 5. Today we're going to be talking about our evenings or our nighttime routine. I am Dustin, and with me, as always, is...
Aaron. I said that like I was punishing myself, like I was in trouble. Aaron! I don't know how to do a good announcement, but...
And from the right side of the ring, we have the heavyweight...
Aaron Wagner! Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's me, Aaron. As always.
We like to have fun here. That's what we do. Because we're here to enjoy ourselves. Not just with cigars, not just with whiskey, but with Jesus. That's why we're here. So, again, we're talking about evening routines, maybe an evening cigar that you might like to relax with, or an evening whiskey, and, of course, Jesus. What are we smoking today, Aaron?
Today, I believe we are smoking a PDR. Ooh, it's a new stick to me. You brought it. You bought a pack of them. And you're so kind as to share them with me. And currently, I'm really not one way or the other on it. I'm getting some earthy, mushroomy flavor on it. I'm undecided, but I always like to get a cigar. So
that's not true. We've had some cigars that we do not like.
That's true. They're flavored.
Generally speaking, I've had cigars that I didn't like that weren't flavored, but yes.
But right now, it's a PDR. What was it? A Capa something?
Capa Natural.
Capa Natural. Yeah, I think I've had a few hits on it, probably down, I've ashed once on it, so whatever that is. But I think starting off, if I'm being real honest, on a scale of 1 to 10, I wouldn't reach for it again.
I'd put it at a 4. Not bad, but
it's
definitely not one I'm going to grab if I saw it in the store.
No, it's for me, it was probably like a 3. Maybe a 4.
3's fair.
It might get better. Like as you smoke, changes flavor, flavors change, profiles change, and it could get stronger. The oils work down. We could see. Maybe I'll come back to it in 15 minutes. And be like, oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this now. But currently, she's not hitting my buttons.
Right. Cut makes a difference in that too. I know you're using a V cut. I use a straight cut on this show. I'd probably use a punch on this, but I typically like the punches. But it would probably bring a lot more of that flavor down at the end, which I'd probably enjoy it more if I was using a punch, but we'll see. As it is right now, I agree. It's nothing great, but the presentation on it was pretty nice. It came in a beautiful box, came in a nice little tube within the box. I mean, like the whole presentation.
Gorgeous.
Part of the reason I reached for it. It came with a few others, though, as well, which I also look forward to trying on a later episode. But this one has a Ecuadorian wrapper, and the binder and filler are both Dominican. It's a light cigar. Again, nothing fantastic about it that I'm going to say, yes, this is a great cigar. You should go out and try it right now.
Yeah, the quality seems okay. Not a ton of smoke, but not bad. But it's just there's just nothing about it that's standing out as of yet. That doesn't happen too often to me. I usually can find something I really am enjoying about a stick. But we've also had some sticks that were real bummers. So right now, I feel like this is a strong 3.5, maybe a 4, maybe a 3. We'll see how she goes as we progress through the episode.
Absolutely. Again, I put it at a 4. It did have a pigtail wrapper, which makes a difference in how you cut it, because a pigtail is not a very easy thing to punch, which is a slight disappointment to me. Although the other end had that kind of fold-over wrapped leaf, which I do enjoy.
Yeah.
I think it also makes it easier to light typically when it folds over on the other end that you light. So
far for me, this is all form, not about a function.
Absolutely. Presentation, right. Form, everything. It
Presentation's
looks
like
great.
an 8 or a 9, but actual enjoyment of the stick itself,
leaves something to be desired.
It does.
The whiskey, however, that we're drinking is a fantastic whiskey that a friend got for us in Japan.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about the whiskey, Aaron?
So we have a friend that comes to our fellowship on Monday nights, and she went to Japan to visit a friend of hers, and she asked if I wanted anything. I was like, well, bring me back a fun Japanese whiskey. And so she brought me back this Nikka, Nikka whiskey. It's a single malt Yoichi, Yoichi. And I've had it before out of this bottle, not previously to when she brought it for me, but we've tried it out of this bottle previously, and we really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward. I haven't had my first sip yet. I'm going to go for it right now and have my first sip. But I'm hoping it's still as good as it always was.
It is better, actually, I think, because sometimes when you're anticipating something and you're like, oh, what a letdown.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. That is
right on the money.
I would put this whiskey probably at an 8 or a 9.
I'd go a solid 8, maybe an 8.5.
Right.
It's not my usual profile that I like. It's almost spicy. Got a lingering finish, but it's smooth, and it's nice and light and fresh on the palate. And then kind of you get hit with this wash of spice as it goes down and it goes into your throat. And you're like, oh, that's got a kick to it, but you're like, I don't mind it. It's nice. It's enjoyable. It doesn't make you cough and go, oh, one can have another sip. And so
I actually dare say it elevates the cigar a little bit too.
Ooh, I didn't. Let me take another sip then. Try that out because the cigar needs some elevating.
The cigar does need a little bit of elevating. Its life is not there, unfortunately, but not a bad stick.
No. Oh man, that's good scotch. I am a single malt scotch guy. I know it's a cigars, whiskey, and Jesus, not cigars, whiskey, and scotch. But if it was, I'd be okay with drinking all scotches all the time. Scotch, scotch, scotch.
Sounds like a line from Anchorman.
It is. It's, yeah, I just enjoy scotch. So single malts are my favorite. I don't mind blends, but I usually go for single malts, and I love trying them all. Japan has, over the past probably 10 years, come up with some fantastic ones. I know you can't call it a scotch because it's not from Scotland, but it's a single malt Yoichi Nikka whiskey, and it's a Japanese scotch, and it's fantastic.
Oh, definitely. And the color is a little bit lighter than I like on that golden color, but it's not disappointing.
It's more of a yellow, like a yellow gold or a yellow honey. It's a honey.
Sure, it's a soft honey color, but again, the color, I do like them a little bit more vibrant in that golden look, or even just like a nice deep brown.
More
I'm okay
amber.
with that too, but this one, the color isn't the main focus here. The flavor is, and the flavor hits it right on the head.
Yeah, I mean, it could look horrible, and I'd still drink it because it tastes so good. I mean, for me, the color, I mean, you do always drink with your eyes first, so presentation matters. However, not nearly as much as the flavor and the enjoyment of the actual intake. And it is delicious.
It's funny that the presentation of the cigar was great, but the flavors are lacking. The presentation of the whiskey, not as great.
Simple.
But the flavors hit it.
And I think that's a true statement for a lot of things. Oftentimes, some of the best things come with the most simple wrappers or the most simple presentations because they don't need to sell it on pizzazz and look at me. It's a simple, humble little thing, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's good. That's real good.
Totally agree, and that's where this whiskey does it just right. The bottle is kind of fun being from Japan. I don't know if you get it in the States if it would have the same thing, but it's just filled with Japanese characters all on the label and stuff.
Yeah.
There's some English on there that we can read it, so we know that it's a single malt scotch, or single malt whiskey. It's not scotch.
Yep.
However, it mostly is just filled with Japanese characters, and that's kind of fun to me as well.
Yeah, and this bottle is readily available throughout, I believe, the United States. It is not something you have to import, but I got it from Japan, and since then I've seen it in other places, so it's available. I think it's maybe a $60, $70 bottle. Not too bad.
Worth it. Definitely worth
yeah.
the $60 to $70,
Yeah.
especially if you're a Scotch drinker. Try this one. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
I think it's right up there with like a nice 12-year Jura, or like a Belvini 12-year, like a port cask Belvini. It's up there with it's got a little spice, but it's smooth, it's nice, it's elegant. I'd be real happy having a tasting with this and be like, ooh, I like that.
And it's great for nighttime. It's not, I don't know if the proof is written on here in a way. Yep, I can. 45% is the alcohol content, so 90 proof.
Yep.
So it's not the heaviest whiskey I've ever had, but it's not light.
It's pretty standard for most whiskeys. I think these are all the whiskeys we have are mostly 45% by volume.
Typically, yeah.
Yeah.
So not bad, but still a great nighttime drink where you can have it and it's not going to affect your judgment on anything. It's not going to impair you truly. It's just going to be a nice, I'm going to drink this and relax in the evening.
Yeah, it's a nice take the edge off. My wife, bless her soul, she when we were first married, she bought me a tumbler with a cylindrical space kind of carved out of the side so that you can put your cigar in it, and on the other side is my initials. So it's like I can drink and hold my cigar into my glass kind of and have a sip and the cigar in the glass and it was kind of a fun gift that she got me, and it's a one-off, and once in a while I'll grab that and have an ice cube in there and pour a little whiskey in there and come out on the deck and have a nice, after a long day, I just sit on the deck and 7, 8 o'clock, sun's setting. It's fantastic.
Which I think is actually the best time to have a drink or a cigars at night. Well, we've talked already on previous episodes about a morning smoke or an afternoon smoke and drink as well.
Yep.
But for me, at nighttime when I'm done for the day, that is what I like. A nice drink, a nice cigar, just mellow and forget about whatever it was I was doing for the day. Maybe reflect on the day and be like, you know what? That was a good day. I'm grateful to God for what I had done that day.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't always end my days with whiskey. Sometimes I like to end them with wine, but this show being Cigars, Whiskey, and Jesus, we're talking about a lot of whiskeys here, but sometimes I go for a red wine, a nice Cab Sauv, and a nice stick.
That's because Jesus followers love their wine, right?
Hey, I like that. But, it just depends on what you enjoy. Sometimes it's just, I want to go outside. Sometimes I finish up a class that I'm teaching that night, and it's still light out, and I'm like, I'm going home and going to sit on the deck and have a cigar and just relax. And it is one of my best, most favorite ways to just wind down from the day, get outside, have a cigar, have a glass of something, even if it's just water. I don't know, but I mean, something alcoholic is usually nice. And just reflect on your day, think back, what did I do today? Did I accomplish what I set out to do? Did I do what God wanted me to do? Have I sought God and fulfilled what He had for me to do today? Am I working towards my calling? It's a great way to gauge. Every day you should be reflecting upon that, I think. And it's always kind of fun to do so. Do you find yourself in a regular habit of doing something like that? Is that kind of a standard for you, or is this kind of more of a treat? Or how does your day usually wrap up when it comes about God, whiskey, and cigars?
Well, when it comes to the end of my day, I almost always end with a drink. Not always a cigar, but almost always a drink. There's a couple different reasons for that. I've actually got a bad back and a few other things, and so not only taking the edge off of the day, but it takes the edge off of the stress I put on my physical body and helps ease some of the pains I'm feeling there.
Sure.
So I almost always end with a drink.
Not that he's advocating drinking your pain away.
Amen.
By any means. He is responsible, and a drink or two, he doesn't go crazy. We're all things in moderation here.
I rarely have two, and only on special occasions where I'm just having a good time
or hanging out with
will
friends,
I go to 3.
Socializing, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not advertising that you should always end your day with a drink. It's just, for me, it helps, again, take the edge off. I could have Vicodin or whatever else. The doctor that I have has even said that they would give it to me. I don't want it. I'm going to stick with just having a drink at night. I do like going for wine, but I'll have whiskey. I might have rum or something else.
Sure.
But a drink at night is a good way to just relax my muscles enough that they're not going to keep me awake all night.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I probably am the transverse of that. I would almost always go with a cigar and not always have a drink. I am much more of a cigar guy for winding down the night. Give me a cigar and get me outside, or get me somewhere where I can just relax and just be in a smoky room for an hour. That really calms me down. And the drink is somewhat an option.
But just to go with human arguments here for a second, Aaron, you're a pastor. You follow God. You're a God worshiper, and you are doing everything you're doing to please God and for God. What stress do you have to smoke or drink away?
I'm chuckling because Dustin is asking me this question sardonically. He he absolutely knows the stresses because Dustin and I are both pastors. We both do some teaching. We both head up Bible studies and do some discipleship groups. And there's evenings are our busiest part of the day for us. Our mornings are probably the least busy, and then our evenings is when our nights fill up because we have stuff going on almost every night of the week that we're doing stuff. So usually when we get home, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and you're just looking because you know you got to go to bed in an hour. You should be going to bed in an hour or two, or you kind of want to wind down your day real quick. Okay, well, a drink might help that. Or you got to get your mind right into the place where, okay, I'm ready for bed now in an hour or two. And, you know, most people get off work at 4 or 5. They got 4 or 5 hours to wind down. I'm done to work at, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night sometimes. Well, I don't want to stay up till midnight, 2 o'clock trying to wind down. So sometimes I just got to kind of get that routine of like, okay, a stick and a scotch. Or for you, some sort of beverage, not always a stick. But as a pastor, I just think it depends on, we have the weight of eternity resting upon us, and making sure that we're living up to God's expectations and making sure that we all want to be doing that. We all are called to live up to God's expectations, to live like Christ, to be more and more like Him. And yet as pastors and as teachers, as fellow servants of the Lord, we are called to do so in a way that we are exempling Christ to people. And not that that's stressful, not that that's difficult, but it does take a lot of time and energy, and that can be weary, or very wearying. Worrisome? Not worry, weary. Anyway, different word. But I think that a lot of pastors don't have a vice. They choose to think about them. Oh, I can't smoke. That's a bad example. I can't have a cigar. That's a bad example. Oh, I can't drink. That's, the Bible says, don't get drunk, so I can't drink. And it's like, I think of like C.S. Lewis. I love C.S. Lewis. I got a lot of his books. I collect a lot of first editions.
Great
you know
author.
That.
Great author.
And I just think about, I was reading his, I think it was called Jack, was his autobiography. And he's talking about how he loved God. He was teaching at Oxford and Cambridge and these big religious organizations in the 1930s and 40s. And how when the evening was done, after dinner meal and before everybody heads off to bed, all the professors would get together and imbibe and smoke a pipe, have a cigar, and talk about theology, talk about God, have current issues they're discussing, and how, as Christians, we should be interacting with those discussions. And World War II is going on now, and we're talking about big things that are taking place in the world, and we're bringing God into it, but we're also bringing, and the alcohol and the smoking, is it necessary? No, but if it helps to just relax you a little bit or put you in a better place to do so, there's no problem. There's no rule in the Bible that says you can't do one or both. I think it's just become a really trite Christian. I'm looking good. I'm trying to look good for people, but it really doesn't honor God unless you're personally not doing it because you either struggle with it or because you have given it to God and saying, I don't want to drink because I don't think it honors God. Great. That's your opinion. That applies to you. I don't have that opinion. That doesn't apply to me. So don't go out and teach that. I'm not going out and teaching you got to drink either. I'm just sharing with those that do like to drink or do like to smoke. Hey, this is how I choose to spend time with God.
Right. As we've often said, our conscience is clear before God.
Yes.
We do not have a guilty conscience with our drinking or smoking. And there's nothing that I can see biblically that would frown upon either unless it was an addiction. You were putting it before God. You were a drunkard. Those things are our issues.
Yep.
But just enjoying it once in a while in moderation.
Yep.
I don't see anything wrong with that at all.
Or a stumbling block. I have a lot of alcoholics in my life, and I don't drink in front of them. I don't advocate for everybody should be drinking and having a good time. I simply, it's an opportunity. If you want it, you can take advantage of it. If you're 21 in this country, you can have a drink. I don't got a problem with that. I don't think you should have 5 or 6, But one or two, if you feel so in the mood, okay. That's my opinion. I have a clear conscience on that, but I would never push that on anybody else. I don't say if you're a Christian you have to drink. I don't say if you're a Christian you cannot drink. Personal choice. How you choose to honor God is between you and God. And even in the Bible it says, keep your mouth shut and don't worry about it, because let that be figured out between them and God, is my honest opinion on a lot of that stuff.
Right. And to use an example that we may have used before, I don't think we have yet, but I'm sure we'll use it again. Aaron and I have a very different opinion on speeding. I don't like to speed. With some exceptions, if there's an emergency, I find speeding okay, but I choose not to speed because that's a sin against my conscience, because I feel like I should be obeying that speed limit, and so I'm going to do that in a way that I find is honoring to God. However, I have no issues with what Aaron does.
I have no issues with speeding because I'm willing to pay the price. If I get pulled over and pay the ticket, yep, you caught me. That's it. I mean, I don't speed outrageously. I'm not like 100 miles an hour everywhere. I might go, if the speed limit's 65, I might go 70, 75. I like to go where I'm going faster. I like to get up to speed and go, and it drives me nuts when people are slow. Puts it along in the fast lane, grr. However, I have a clear conscience before God as well, because for me, it's fine. I have no qualms whatsoever before God with doing that.
Right, and you're even going more with the flow of traffic than I am.
Yeah, 100%. So really, those are personal choices that we get to make. Each one of us gets to make those personal decisions on how we're going to honor God with our lives and how we live it. And the best way to do that is, do we have a clear conscience? Do I feel guilty when I do this? Well, then you should probably check yourself and maybe address or pivot how and what you're doing so that you don't get that check. But if you don't have a check and it doesn't say to not do it in the Bible, well, then it comes up to personal, constitution as far as personal conscience. I know, and the Bible talks a lot about eating meat and different things and drinking, and it's just like...
Right, and if it's a sin to you, it's a sin. Don't do it. You're sinning against your conscience.
Right.
Not necessarily against God, but you're sinning against your conscience because you feel guilty about doing it before God. So, if that's how you feel about it, don't do it. But, hey, if your conscience is clear, and again, as Aaron said, there's no prescription in the Bible that says don't do this, then there's no hang-up. There's no issue.
Right. It's... we're not saying, well, if you don't feel guilty about sleeping with your girlfriend, go ahead. We're not saying that. That is absolutely wrong. That is sin. It's biblically written that we should not be living those kind of lives with fornicating, and, it's for marriage and for the marriage bed only, and we should be keeping that pure. And I go, that's biblical. We know that to be a sin regardless of how we feel about it.
Amen.
Smoking and drinking, a little bit more personal.
Absolutely.
Eating meat, personal.
And as such, clear conscience before God.
Yep.
And also, we're not doing the smoking or drinking as a way to cope. Now, I've mentioned that I drink at night to relax my muscles, to help me fall asleep easier. At the same time, there's been plenty of nights where I haven't had a drink. And I usually choose on those nights specifically not to have a drink if I've had such a rough day where the drinking would obscure my thought process on the day. Right?
Oh, okay.
Because I don't want to use it as a coping mechanism.
Right.
I don't want to use it to just dull my emotional pain. I'm using it to dull physical pain, but I find that to be very, very different, and I'm not drinking in excess.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I trust God for the emotional side of things.
Yeah. I just think we've gotten a little too religious when it comes to some of this stuff, and we think, "Oh, look at me! I'm so pious. I'm so righteous because I don't do these things." And it's like, no, you're not. If you're doing them to please man or to look a certain way, that's on you and your conscience. That's not on us. But you should not go around advertising. My wife has a good friend that her husband is a very strong vegan, and he's supposedly a Christian. But he now goes out and he talks to other Christians and says, "How can you be a Christian and kill God's creatures?" And he starts to pour this guilt onto other believers about them eating meat, because how could a loving God, or how could you be as a follower of God that's supposed to love people and love God, kill the creatures he created? How could you do, and it's a manipulation. And people are doing the same thing now with drinking, with smoking, with a lot of things. They're manipulating you with these feelings that really God doesn't have a lot to say on. How do you feel about it? Does it make you feel good or bad or guilty? Okay, let's work with that.
Well, right. Same thing with speeding. I'm going to go back to that analogy here again quick. I remember riding with a friend one time who loves to speed. I mean, the speed limit's 60. He's probably going 75, right? And I've got no issues with it if his conscience is clear before God and he's thought about it, right? Well, I brought that up to him one time as we're driving together, and we're talking about it, and I'm not judging him, I'm not condemning him, I'm just asking him how he feels about it. And he said he feels fine. And I'm like, okay, and have you looked at this in relationship with God at all? And that, when he said no, that was fine, except that he went one step further and basically said, I don't care. And
Ooh,
right there,
that's a problem.
Is where I'm like, well, maybe you should talk to God about this. And if you're good still after that talk with God to speed, by all means do it. But if you haven't talked to him yet, and your conscience isn't clear now that I've brought this up, maybe you should consider that for a minute. Yeah. I'm not guilting you for speeding. I'm not saying don't speed. Just make sure your conscience is clear before God on Judgment Day, and that you're doing what you're doing to honor him and not just ignoring the fact that he is there.
Yeah, I think to bring it back onto the topic of evening, what we do in our evening routine, I think we're talking about reflection here, and sometimes you don't even see that you have a big gaping hole in your theology because you didn't even notice that you were speeding and didn't even compare it with God or put it towards God. And sometimes taking the time of the evening to reflect upon your day and saying, did I do this in honor to God? Did I trust God in this situation? Am I just doing this out of my own will and my own desire? Am I truly honoring God with every single area of my life? The evening is a great time to look back on your day, every day, to question those things, to start to question, to ask those things like, oh, I was speeding a lot today, and I don't know if I've ever given that to God. Maybe I should pray about it and see if I feel that rest and that peace to continue to do so. Or maybe there's a check there. Maybe I got to adjust that. But to say I don't care is definitely a foolish answer, in my opinion.
I would agree.
And it's a quick rejection because you caught him off guard or something. But to go, this is where the evening comes in because you've now done your day. You look back and you go, have I done my best for God today? Have I done my best to live a life like Christ today? Even if it was just working hard at what you've got before you to do. Even if you're a construction worker and you just worked 12 hours, but you did it with all your strength as if working under the Lord. And you came home and you're like, I did a good day's work. And I came home to my family, I loved them, I had a great meal, played with my kids, put them all to bed, and I just got some time with my wife, and it's just like, this is a fantastic day. I honored God all the way through it. And I go, you want to have that peace at the end of the day. You want to have that recognition and be able to reflect back upon it. And I think, do I do it as often as I should? Probably not. But I talking about it, I feel like I'm going to definitely incorporate that more into my life.
Something to strive for, even if you're not doing it every day. Something that maybe you should incorporate more often.
Or even once a week.
I should incorporate it more often. I know I should. But, and I'm not making excuses here. I know Aaron and my's nighttime routine is different because that's when we are busy, right? So now imagine for a minute if you weren't busy and you, say, got home at 5, maybe 6 in the evening. How would that change your evening routine?
Mine personally?
Yours personally.
Yeah, it would definitely be, I want to use the word more routine, but it would be more calm, probably come home, have some dinner, and then, spend some time downloading with the wife, just trying to catch up on the day, how her day went, how my day went, sharing back and forth. Maybe prioritizing making some calls to some friends, reaching out, just catching up that kind of way, and then probably just relaxing for the day, for the evening. I don't know. I mean, it would be definitely some God time for me. I know my prayer routine in the evening, often is when I crawl into bed with my wife, and that's when her and I pray together often. Is throughout the day, I'm on my schedule, she's on her schedule, she does her thing, I do my thing. Throughout the day, we bump into each other, we're talking, but we're not really praying together all day. We're not really, but at night, we come together, we go to bed, and that's when we pray most often for the next day, that we give thanks for the day that's come into place, if that's just happened, or, I think that's kind of my routine if I didn't have a busy evening life, maybe. But, I mean, that's still my nighttime routine, I guess, but...
Sure.
How about you?
I probably would have a similar outlook if I had a more structured day where I was busy in the morning and then had the night to unwind instead of the reverse, which I actually have. I like how you said you would connect with your wife then, right?
Yeah.
Because we are the bride of Christ, we should be connecting with him, right? And you and I are both dudes.
Yep.
I find that the connection aspect is a little bit more important to my wife than it is to me. Not to say I don't value that time. I love connecting with her. But I think she finds a lot more value in that in our relationship than I do. Where I could probably go a day or two without talking to her and not think anything is wrong. She would probably freak out.
Yeah.
And I enjoy connecting with her, so I don't want to go a day or two without talking or connecting, but I would have an easier time with it. But we are the bride of Christ. That should be just as important to us to connect with Christ as it is for our wives to connect with us.
Yeah, I think about like Daniel, who prayed in the morning, he prayed in the midday, and then he prayed in the evening. And I just like that pacing. For me, I don't always get to replicate that. I don't always come close to that kind of discipline to do that regularly. But I do find myself at night, I feel like I probably honestly don't connect with God as much in the evening as I do through the rest of the day. I think it's just kind of like, that I'm done, I'm unplugging, and I unplug, not from God necessarily, but just...
I find myself actually connecting with God more than I do reflecting on my day more often.
Really?
Right. So my evening routine is I go home, and it's usually late at night, or I've been busy at home all day, and then it's nighttime, my son's in bed, my wife is just kind of waiting for me. Her and I connect, and that's great.
Yep.
And then we sit on the couch, and maybe we'll have a movie on, maybe I'll play a video game, whatever we're doing, right? She eventually falls asleep on my lap. And you know what? I actually really love that. I've been getting on her case a little bit right now lately because she's pregnant, and I want her to get more rest in bed because I know that's better for her.
Sure.
But when she is not pregnant, I love it, right? She just falls asleep on me and just passes out, and I find myself just chatting with God, ignoring what's on TV,
Yep.
and just being like, thank you for this. And I have that same connection I had with my wife, but now I'm having it with God. And I love that time. And then we end up waking her up, we go to bed together, and that's where we actually pray as well together.
Okay.
And then we go to bed for the evening.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I'm thinking about it. I just go, because I do work in the evenings, and I've spent the last hour and a half teaching or leading a discipleship group or a Bible study, that I've kind of not godded out, but like, okay, I'm coming home to now unplug from stuff, and I think that the prayer when I crawl into bed with my wife is important, and I love that time with her. Sometimes that goes for quite a while. Other times, I'm snoozing away while she's finishing up praying, or vice versa. But it's a great way to end the day for me. It's peaceful, it's relaxing, and it just kind of puts us in a great space to sleep. But yeah, my evenings, just because it is routine for me to spend time with God, doing work for God in the evenings. I don't spend a whole lot of time personally seeking Him in the evenings outside of work.
Sure. So,
I don't know if that's correct or incorrect or what, but I'm just looking at it going, I don't know if that's a hole in my life that I should fill or not or what, but I don't feel a problem with it currently.
Well, I don't want you to burden yourself with it,
No,
but I mean, the Bible tells us to pray without ceasing, right?
100%.
And there's a difference between that time you set aside specifically to talk with God And when you do that, I want to encourage you not just to do all the talking, but give space for God to respond to you,
Yes.
right? It's a two-way communication.
Yep.
It's not one way. But throughout the entire day, you're still, as you said, an open phone line to God. There's still that open communication that you're still talking to him, he's still talking to you, but it's very different than that set-aside time. Just like
Yes.
you're saying with your wife throughout the day, you kind of interact, you kind of share, but there's a little bit more of a download at night on how your day went.
I think the truth of it is that's like for me, the morning is when I download with God and get most of my intense prayer time with God in, and I'm really seeking God for set up my day for success. And at the end of my day, I'm just kind of giving him thanks, reviewing my day with my wife, either in prayer or just verbally downloading to each other, but not necessarily so much to God until I go to bed and we just give thanks for the day.
Sure.
Kind of thing. So, yeah, I think everybody's got a different plan, different evening routine, but I think the thing we're really trying to hit here is that we're incorporating God into it, is that we're trying to honor God and bring him into that relationship with us in everything we're doing all day long, and not just unplugging from God, but keeping that phone line open, keeping that communication open. And I mean, sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. and I also just want to go to my office and pray. You know, God
Sure.
still speaks to me, still moves on me to do things. But just in the evening, usually that's just my downtime where my window or my focus goes from much more wide open to much more narrow of just like, I'm unplugging, I'm just winding down, and God is part of that, but not the focus of that.
Well, I love how you talked about waking up at like 3 a.m. and talking to God, because here's something that's a lot of people find unique, but it doesn't have to be. And I'll go through that in a minute. But I don't dream often, and when I do, because of my past, I tend to have nightmares. Nightmares are the dreams that I have. What is fascinating to me, though, and I love, is I'll find myself in the middle of my nightmare praying to God. I'm openly communicating with God even while I am sleeping.
Oh, I love that.
Now, you think, wait a second, I want to do that. How do you do that? Whatever. It can be done. It was something I focused on making happen for myself, where I would be seeking God before I went to sleep, praying with him, and asking him for this. Like, it was something I thought, you know what, I'm having nightmares, and I know I can seek you even in that, because I should be praying to you constantly without ceasing. So give me that awareness in my own dreams to seek you. And I have. And it's changed the way I dream when I dream drastically, and my sleep is better actually because of it.
Wow, I've never really heard that before, and as far as an experience, but that's cool. I don't dream a lot myself, but I have fine dreams. I don't ever have nightmares, and I don't think I've ever found myself praying in my dreams. But that's really cool, man.
It is. It's a fantastic experience, and whether your dreams are good or bad, I would encourage you to actually pray about that as you're going to sleep regularly, whether you dream often or not. And find yourself, eventually, you will start praying in your dream because your focus is seeking God. And even when you're sleeping, that becomes your focus, and you will find yourself doing that. And it's a really cool experience. I think it's something that everybody could achieve. And I'm not saying you have to, but I think that if you do it, you'll desire it more and more.
Well, and I think that just speaks to how much you depend upon God in difficult situations. Like, to me, that speaks to if you're having nightmares, in your dreams, you're praying to God to help you overcome a difficult. Like, it shows dependency upon God, and I just think that's super cool.
I am hopelessly dependent upon God.
I love that, man. I've never experienced that. That's super cool. I've had actual dreams from God, visions from God. You know, definitely get where God's spoken to me through dreams and visions, but that's very different than just.
It is.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a great experience, like I said. And I, too, have had those dreams where I know without question they are from God, and they are wonderful, don't get me wrong, but there's something different about seeking him while you're even sleeping. And I would very much encourage everybody to give it a shot.
So overall, I think my nighttime routine is not so God-centric until I get into bed with my wife and pray with her. and that's kind of my night routine with God. But I do find myself, as I'm watching a TV show, or I'm praying in tongues while I'm watching the show, or just God's pulling on me, and I'm like, I'm going to go to my office for 20 minutes. Sometimes that happens, but it's not my standard routine. I remember an old preacher back in the 20s and 30s, I think he was, Smith Wigglesworth. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have not.
He was a famous Pentecostal faith healer, and he says, you know what, I don't really pray to God more than 30 minutes a day, or 30 minutes at a time, but I don't usually ever go more than 30 minutes without praying. And I'm like, I like that. You know what I mean? He's not praying to God for 4 or 5 hours at a time, but all day long he's praying to God, and he doesn't go half an hour without praying to God and seeking Him. And I think when we talk about having that phone line open, it's like if you want to be close to someone, you got to be open to communication with them both ways all the time. And that's what that pray without ceasing for me is how I understand it. Is it's like a phone line to God, and the phone is He's on the other end listening, you're on your end listening, but you're not always talking, but you're ready to listen. You're prepared. And if you got them to share, you can say it, and you know that God is hearing you because you're in a state of preparedness to receive and to share with God at all times. Yep. And, I mean, who can go all day without ceasing in prayer? I don't think that's really realistic. Yet that attitude of prayer, that openness to prayer, that connection with God is maintained. And I think that's what we're really striving to seek.
Absolutely. I actually see a lot of prayer, initially anyway, as much more of a walkie-talkie situation, or for those who use them, you'd refer to it as a radio. So you'd be...
I walkie and I talkie.
I walkie and I talkie. No, but like anybody who uses them, whether you're at a construction or a security or military, you'd call it a radio.
Yeah.
But you're on the radio, right? Your radio is turned on. And if somebody starts talking through it, you're going to hear it. You can't avoid not hearing the radio chirp and be like, somebody's now talking. Well, keep that radio open with God so that it's always there with you. As soon as he starts talking, you know he's there. You know he's talking to you.
Yeah.
That, very much like having the open phone line. But that's just how I vision it. It's same concept.
Similar, same concept. Just a little bit different analogy, but I like them both. Coming back to... Real quick, touching on the whiskey again, I finished my glass. I'm reaching for a second one, but I won't. But it was delicious. That's an 8.5 for me. Strong 8. That's no problem. 8.5.
Solid 8, solid. Maybe a 9.
Stick hasn't really grown on me. Hasn't really, but I'd maybe raise it from a 3 to a 4. But it really hasn't done anything for me. I would not go for it again.
I would say it's gotten better, but I would keep it at a 4. It is a solid 4 now, where initially I was like, I don't know, I could waffle on it. And as I got down to the end, solid 4, but I'm the same. I'm not looking for this again. I wouldn't turn it down, but I'm not going to reach for it.
I just go, I've had it once now, and I go, okay, I know what it's like. I've had it. I don't know if I've enjoyed it necessarily, but I go, I'm good. I'll reach for something else. If you brought it to me and it's the only stick I had available, I would smoke it. But if I had something else that I liked more, I would definitely choose that.
That's what I mean by not turning it down, right?
Okay.
If I had options, I'd probably go with something different. But hey, if I'm over at a friend's house and they're like, hey, you want to smoke this? I'd be like, sure, I'll smoke it.
Yeah.
Because it's not bad, but it's not something I'm going out to find. I'm not buying it. I'm not looking for it.
That's a 3.5, 4. I don't know. It's in that range.
3, I might even turn down even if I wanted a cigar. I'm not guaranteed to turn it down, but...
Okay.
4, I wouldn't turn it down. A 3, I might still turn it down.
We're still working through our rating system, it sounds like, and we'll get it more defined as we go, but I think for me, I would still smoke a 3 just to have something to do because I like smoking. A cigar, especially in company, if someone offered it to me, I'd smoke it. But a 2 or, I guess 3 is pushing it, so maybe it's a 3.5 or a 4.
Sure.
But, yeah, it's not doing much for me, so...
2, I would have to be desperate to smoke something, and that doesn't usually happen.
No.
1 is I don't care how desperate I am, I'm turning it down.
Yeah, I think pretty much anything 2 or 1, I wouldn't choose to ever have that again.
Right.
So, I know that we've kind of covered a lot, and it wasn't necessarily too spiritual, but we kind of shared a little bit about our lives, about our routines, about our evenings, and how we go about them, and why ours might look a little different than yours. hopefully you got something out of this. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Kind of made me question, in a good way, okay, maybe I should prioritize spending a little bit more time with God in the evening. Maybe not, but it's something I'm going to seek God about, because I do want to be honoring Him morning, noon, and night. So I do know that prayer line is always open, and that I'm always ready to receive from Him, but I can be doing more for that, and it's always good to encourage one another to seek God more. How can you not always want to have more of God? But hopefully you guys got something out of this. Reach out if you have any questions or want to talk. If you have specific things, direct message us or email us. We'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love if you got your own evening routine that you want to share because it's unique or it's different or fun. We'd love to see it. Let us know.
And next week we'll be smoking Shade to Black, a Drew Estate cigar, part of their Black End line.
I love Drew Estates. They're one of my favorite sticks.
Fantastic cigars. And then we'll be drinking with that a Macallan 12 year.
Yep.
So if you want to join us in smoking and drinking, you know what we're having next week. And now we're going to go ahead and close in prayer. As usual, we'll have that 10 seconds of silence for you to just open up your heart to God. So if you'd like to join me here quick. Heavenly Father, as we're closing out this evening, we just ask that you are with us and our listeners, and that those who do want to seek to pray to you constantly, even in their sleep, we ask that they seek you in doing so, and that you will help them in that process of seeking you and praying to you even while they're sleeping and dreaming. We just know that you are always with them, and we are so grateful to you for that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We love you guys. We look forward to having more conversations, and we'll see you on the next episode.